Tonight on Dateline Abuja, we're talking about governance with empathy. And looking at the FCT administration, are we witnessing governance without empathy? An activist, well, she calls herself an active citizen, joins us tonight to talk about governance in the FCT and how the human factor is being neglected in that governance structure. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Kayla Magwa. Take a look at some of the major stories this week from Nigeria's presidency. It's time for our Abuja Wrap.
President Bola Tinubu returned to Abuja following a 10-day working visit to Lagos. The president arrived in Lagos on 26th of September after attending the coronation of His Imperial Majesty, the Olubadan of Ibadan land, Oba Rashidi Adewolu Ladoja in Ibadan. While in the nation's commercial capital, President Tinubu engaged with key investors, ministers and heads of agencies. The president also visited Imo State to commission projects undertaken by Governor Hope Uzodinma and Plateau State to attend the burial of Mama Lydia Yelwada, the mother of Professor Nentawe Yelwada, the chairman of the APC. He delivered the national broadcast from the State House, Dodon Barracks, on Independence Day and later commissioned the renovated National Theatre, now renamed the Wole Soyinka Center for Culture and the Creative Arts, where he called on Nigerians to speak positively about their country. The National Council of States approved the nomination of Professor Joash Ojo Amupiton, a senior advocate of Nigeria from Kogi State, as the new chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission. This is a key resolution reached at the hybrid meeting of the Council of State, chaired by President Bola Tinubu. President Tinubu had presented Professor Amupiton as the nominee to fill the vacant position following the exit of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu from the commission. The president also chaired a police council meeting immediately after the Council of State meeting. The World Bank has estimated that about 139 million Nigerians are living in poverty in spite of the positive outcomes of the government's macroeconomic reforms. The bank also raised concerns for the nation's food inflation rate, increased allocations from the Federation Account Allocation Committee, and what it calls a shock-responsive safety net system to help households manage crisis. Speaking during the presentation of the National Development Update Report, the World Bank Country Director, Mr. Matthew Vegas, explains that addressing the issues raised will pave the way for development across all levels. While the report commends the government for its bold reform, it cautioned that the reforms are yet to have the expected impact on the people. The Senate has issued a 2-week ultimatum to the executive to submit a comprehensive documented progress report on the implementation of the 2024 budget, as well as projections of the 2025 budget, before it would entertain the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, MTEF. Chairman of the Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Sani Musa, gave the declaration during a meeting with President Bola Tinubu's economic team, led by Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edu, at the National Assembly. Senator Musa noted that the legislature requires detailed performance data before it will assess the assumptions and projections in the proposed MTEF and fiscal strategy paper for 2026.
Welcome back. In this two-part interview with my guest, Aisha Yesufu, an activist, active citizen, and very outspoken critic of the FCT administration, we'll be taking a look at governance in the FCT and the humanity part of governance. She says that we are not seeing a governance that has empathy at its core and is calling for more changes and development in other sectors other than just infrastructure growth. Please watch this. Welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you so much for having me.
I know that activism is one of the most contentious issues in the country right now. Everyone is talking about the freedom, and it's not just in Nigeria, it's a worldwide thing, of course, with the killing of Charlie Kirk. The concept of having to express yourself as an activist, and what that means to a democratic dispensation, what it means for good governance, and then what the protection of the right of someone to express something dissenting from another person. It's a popular saying, I don't agree with what you say, but I respect your right to say it. Do you feel like in Nigeria and with our government that we've understood how activism works, or are we still hitting everything we see with the hammer because we don't understand how people can be opposing to what the government says.
Well, the hitting of the hammer, it's not because we don't understand, it's because the others refuse to hear. Because when it comes to governance, you know, when people advocate, it's always seen as if you're fighting, you're the enemy. No, you're not. You're just pointing out what is wrong. And if it's fixed, guess who's going to take the glory? It's actually that same, you know, government. But from the statement, this thing that you did earlier on, you know, in terms of when you say, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I believe in your right to say it. I also want to add something to that. I will fight for your right to say it, no matter how obnoxious something is that someone has said. The person has a right to it, and nobody has to be killed, you know, for whatever statement it is that they've made. You might not like it, and you know, show strongly that you don't like it. But at the end of the day, there must be room for dissenting opinions, because dissenting opinions give us opportunity to be able to look at issues from a different perspective. And unfortunately for us, especially in this part of the world, in Nigeria most especially, we don't even know the art of arguing. Because even as kids, we were brought up to just, you're told what you're told, and that's it. You must not be heard, you can only be seen. So I always say that the first set of dictators that Nigerians came across were actually their parents. And so because of that, when they grew up, they replaced government. They replaced their parents with government. And so they just feel like, oh, you listen, you don't talk. But that's not the way it is. You listen, you talk, you have to advocate and ensure that the right thing is being done for the people.
In the FCT, it's a mix of emotions in the FCT, isn't it, when it comes to development?
Absolutely.
Because you do see the projects, but then there are sectors that many people, yourself included, have been speaking about that are not being attended to. One of those sectors, at least from what we saw recently, is health. You know, so while we're thinking about, oh no, the FCT minister is doing what he can. He's building roads, he's connecting, giving accessibility. In fact, we had a mandate secretary on health here a few weeks ago, and she said, listen, we can't provide health care if there is no accessibility to health care. So what he's done is part one, which is create the accessibility, and then we can start to grow these primary health care centers. But we're seeing that the resident doctors, they went on strike, a warning strike, and then an indefinite strike for the FCT, calling out the government on things that they believe are the problems with providing proper health care to the residents of the FCT. Talk to us a little bit about this ball that is being dropped, especially in the health sector, and how the FCT minister can improve on this situation that he inherited.
So when we talk about he inherited, that shouldn't be. You understand? It doesn't matter who is in office or not in office. The Ministry of Abuja has been in existence for how long? So that somebody came and somebody go, when they're talking about government, they're not talking about you as a person. You're a representative of that office. So it's not about being defensive or, you know, trying to say whether who inherited what. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is, let's even talk about the infrastructure before we come to the issue of healthcare. Everything is about opportunity cost. You understand? When you're doing something, no matter how beautiful it is, you have to ask yourself, would this money be better used in another place? That's what governance is supposed to be about. It's about the way you plan in your own house and ensure that whatever resources you have, you make the most judicious use of it. So when it comes to public funds, that's also something you do. If you are in your house, and let me break it down from all of us to understand. You have a house, you're in your family, you have certain amount of salary, and then the next thing you go and buy, you know, the most luxurious car. Is a luxurious car something to buy? Yes, absolutely yes. But when you buy it when you've not paid the school fees of your children, doesn't that now become irresponsible? So those are the things. But you say that, oh, babe, I've done something. I've bought this luxurious car. We are enjoying it. You know, this machine. You park it in front of your house. But inside your house, there's no food to eat. You can't pay the health care of your children. So that becomes a major problem. When they talk about that, you have to provide access before you provide health care. I don't want access in what sense? Roads. In terms of the roads. Yeah. How does that make sense? That you have to provide access first. It's supposed to be the other way. Health, education, these are, you know, paramount that you need to put out there. They should be there before you talk about these other things. And when you're talking about access, let's talk about roads. In Abuja today, and there's something that for me, I'm becoming passionate about, because all this while I've lived in Abuja for over a decade. I've always focused on national issues. But I think that I need to focus on Abuja issues, because first of all, you look at it, in roads, Road is not just about, the Maitama, the Guzapes, the Wusetu and all of that. It goes beyond. There are places inside Gwarimpa, is it Jikoyi, all those Lube area, where roads are so terrible that you're driving. Every day you exhaust yourself mentally trying to dodge potholes. And then you come to these places where the roads aren't even bad. They're scraping them. They're building them again. They're doing this beautiful flyovers. Are beautiful flyovers something to do? Absolutely, yes. But what is the opportunity cost? Would that money have been put somewhere else where you're providing primary health care to the citizens, where you are ensuring that public education in Abuja should be top-notch? No parent should have to pay for good quality education for primary and secondary school education. University, we can talk about that later. But is Abuja, let Abuja be that beacon of hope when you say that if you come down to Abuja and you have children, you can send them to the public school and you have an amazing school. Some schools in Abuja, children are still sitting on the floor. Some hospitals in Abuja, we're talking about the primary healthcare, centers, they don't even have a doctor on ground. Maybe you're seeing one nurse and then a few people who are volunteering. There was one we went to that was along, Airport Road. The fact is that they are Abuja citizens. When election comes, you have access to go to those places. But when it's not time to provide, the healthcare that they need, the schools that they need, you're saying that you need to first of all do assets. This is what I think about those assets, though. Most of them are conduit pipes. And what it does is that it gives opportunity for people a lot of shenanigans to go under them. But when it comes to providing these other basic things, they don't do as much. But which of the ones is it that give the people, that governance that they're deserving of, that development, they are not being focused on? There's something that they call eye service. Well, sometimes people focus on that and don't do the main ones.
I was going to say that the argument that the FCT authorities and the minister, I've heard him say this, Abuja is like DC. It's like Washington, D.C., it's seat of power. So you have a lot of guests coming in here, which means that the optics have to look good. That's the argument for the kind of infrastructure development that we see. That may not be what we want, the roads in Jikoyi, in Dafe, in all those places.
Let me tell you something.
The idea is that the city center has to be a place where we receive guests. So, and the entire diplomatic community lives here. Shouldn't we make it beautiful? Isn't optics important in that sense? It is very important.
It is very important. But you make everything beautiful.
So they say they're doing it one step at a time. No, they're
not doing one step at a time. They're only doing one step at a place. In the place where you don't even need to do something, you're doing it. A place where the road, there's not much traffic, you're putting in a flyover that could have been used in somewhere else. Talking about DC, I stayed in DC for, I think, 5 months, other than Aberdeen. That's the place that I've stayed the longest stretch outside of Nigeria, my own country. And there is no place I lived in. Because what this is, within the city center, houses are not affordable. So it's better you go, far away.
To
sometimes
you're doing,
exactly, you're doing like a train ride, like an hour or an hour and a half from the main city center. Those places are developed. It doesn't have to be big money. It's just some of them, they are not big roads. They are just, a little bit of small road, but well tarred, well kept, everything, it's aligned. So this, when you see the houses there, everything is well taken care of. But not that they ended up concentrating everything and redoing things in the same place while the whole suburb is suffering. The people who are coming into the city center, they're coming in, they're grumbling. They're coming in, they're suffering. When they're driving their cars, they're having to go to the mechanic for so often because of the awful roads that they're using. They're having now to be at the expense of people who are going to steal from them, people who are going to rob them, and insecurity because of those roads, because you're forced to slow down. So that's not an excuse. What you do, one of the things is that in a place like Abuja, there's so much that can be done if it's really about governance for the people. And I'll give you an example. First of all, it's for that opening of roads. You get to open new places, put infrastructure there, the roads and everything, open up the place and people can build. People are ready to build. building a house is not as difficult as a lot of people think it is. The most difficult part is getting the land. And because this land will now become so expensive, a lot of people can't afford it. So you open up that place, that is one. Let's talk about education, right? We have beautiful private schools here. If you have money, access to good quality education is dependent on the economic status of your family. My children went to one of the most expensive schools in this Abuja. The other children are deserving of public good quality education, just like my kids are. Even if they don't have money, that's what government should provide, you know, primary and secondary.
We do have to go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll stay on that topic, education, access. And of course, the FCT always feels like it's very private sector driven, which means that if you don't have the money, you can't survive here. So please.
Which is not fair.
Stay with us on Dateline Abuja. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching Dateline Abuja right here on Channels Television. Activist Aisha Yesufu joins us tonight on the program. Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm not an activist. I'm an active Nigerian citizen. There's a difference.
What's the difference between an active Nigerian citizen and an activist?
I'm a Nigerian who feels my voice should not be taken away from me, and I matter. And when I talk, the government should listen because I'm paying the government.
But not everyone is on the streets.
No, you don't have to be on the streets. That's why I'm active.
No, not everyone is going to bring back our girls' badge.
When they refuse to hear it, I'll be on the street. But you know, before the break, there was something that you did say that Abuja is private sector driven.
It does feel like it's private sector driven.
It does feel like and it shouldn't be. But that's the way it is. The government is not supposed to cater to people who have money. Government is supposed to cater to everyone, agreed, but most especially the vulnerable amongst us. For some of us, for example, I will use myself as an example. I can afford to give myself good quality, you know, education, right? But there are some people who can't afford to give their children good quality education, and that's what the government should be focused on. And if you're talking about FCT, they should focus on that and provide that so that we're getting everybody education. It's for the greater good.
There's an unpopular opinion. Abuja is not for everybody. If you can't afford to live here, then why are you here? I've heard that since we moved here in the 90s, you know, that there's a way the place is.
So Nigeria is also not for everybody. If you can't afford, people should be driven out if that's the case. How do you tell people that you met here? There were people in this Abuja. Let's be real, you understand? Abuja, when they decided to make Abuja the Federal Capital Territory, it's a community that people lived in, their ancestral homes. And so today you're saying to them that, oh no, if you can't live here, you live. How does that even make sense? And then when we say, so you don't have right to a place because you don't have money. Does government have money? Government doesn't have its own money. Its own money comes from the fact that the people have given up of their, you know, sovereignty.
How do you feel about the repatriation of beggars? Because that's a drive from the FCT administration. We started seeing a lot of people begging at traffic lights in the city center. And then they started this drive of moving all of them to the rehabilitation center in Buari, and then they were repatriating them to their states. It was a very controversial conversation that we had because, one, just the humanity of what you're doing, and then how do you stop them from coming back, you know? And they said they were going to be in talks with the states, and what do you make of that whole idea?
So the first thing that I see there in terms of begging, where they say they're taking them, they're rehabilitating them. So that's a good one. What are you doing? You help them to stand on their feet in a way that they no longer have to beg.
Or returning them to their states
No,
of origin.
that's a no-no. Because we have a freedom of association. We, as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, every part of the territory of Nigeria is your home. Whatever state I decide to stay in, that's where I'm from. That's where I am. Don't tell me because ABCD, that's not, the Constitution doesn't say that. So for them to take them from Abuja, begin to repatriate them, or which home? What if this is their home? Why are you taking them elsewhere? So I don't think that's a good thing for you to say, oh, you're taking them back home. But, you know, taking them off the streets, helping them to be able to get, to have a source of living, for them not to beg again, that is something that should be done. And
what about the demolition of shanties?
So, you know, when we talk about the demolitions of shanties, the first thing that I look at, the people who allowed those shanties to stay, do they lose their jobs? Because don't forget that There are people whose job it is to check those places. Whether you're putting up a structure, you don't put it the right way. You know, they come and put those their number, this thing. So when a shanty it starts happening, and then they're silent about it, and they allow it to grow. You know, sometimes there are some certain places that you are even trying to get them to not be there. You're telling the authority, hey, they're starting something, they do nothing. And then you allow this thing to now metamorphose into a dwelling place where people are there. Everybody needs shelter. You understand? When we're talking about basic amenities, food, shelter, you know, they're very important. And if the government is not providing affordable source of shelter, then do they really have the right to drive people away? And just for them to clear the road and just have this big, you know, structures that are out there? These are questions that we need to ask. The FCT right now, you know, like for example, in the UK, you have something like the council homes and all of that. Do we have something like that in the FCT? Why don't...
And the conversation, when the conversation came up about, because yes, that's what they're called abroad, council homes, but they called them housing for displaced people. When the conversation came up, the FCT administration knocked it down. They said, we're not doing that. So
that's the thing. Why are they not doing that? Because they don't care for the vulnerable. But at the end of the day, when it's time for election, it's those same vulnerable that you go to go and get the numbers. See, governance without empathy is no governance.
Do you think the FCT administration is practicing governance without empathy?
Absolutely. They don't have empathy. That's what you see every day. I mean, a family just lost their parents just because there's no empathy. So governance should have empathy. So they should be practicing governance with empathy. But what they're doing is governance without empathy, where they don't care about the people. Policies are supposed to be people-centric. It's about the people. You should put smiles on the faces of your people. For example, let me just give you an example. The government of FCT decides today to go look for certain place, you know, clear it up and begin to build houses. Just that mimics like the council housing, right? And these things are not too expensive. It's the land that is that, you know, expensive that some will be 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and if it's done judiciously without all the padding and adding 30% cut, you'll be surprised at the number of houses you can get with, let's say, 50 billion or 100 million. Just start from that. And you have this place where people can have this affordable, you know, shelter, family who are the vulnerable ones, like you're packing them from these shanties, you're putting them there, and then you're having, you know, having good healthcare around them, having a good public school system around them. The children from there, they're going to grow. You're talking about your citizens, they're going to do better. They will work better. They will give you better. A lot of people will be off crime. If people are not paying so much, because rent is expensive. I will tell you that. I know I'm a landlady. I've been a landlady since the year 2007. Rent is expensive, and I'm sorry, it has to be expensive because when I'm buying the land, it's expensive.
Do you people come together? Let me pause here and talk about this rent issue in the FCT as a landlady. Do you people have a meeting where you all decide that we're just going because rent just went up again?
Okay, so in my own case, I don't belong
houses
to any
houses that were paying rent of 1.5 million at the time when Tinubu came into power. Right now, they're charging 4 million for those houses.
You know why?
Why?
Because prices in everything has tripled. Let me just explain to you. The 1.5 million that person was collecting before, he probably will use it to pay his maybe a one person's school fees. Now he can't pay one person's school fees. So he needs to increase it.
Where am I supposed to get the money from? As a tenant, where is the tenant supposed to get the money from?
Then because talk to your government. Let me
talk to the government.
Yes, talk to it. Why are things expensive? That's the question you should be asked. That's the question we should be asking as Nigerians. When we're making demand, people think it doesn't concern them. In my own case, I will tell you something. And for me, it's not a smart business way. You understand? My houses, there's no house that I have ever built that somebody lived in and they didn't start for at least 10 years without increment. In my own house, in short, I don't even know, and you're the one telling me there's an increase, and I don't even know that. Because when they are leaving, so two things happen. They are either when they leave to go to their own houses, and then when they are leaving, they already bring someone in. Yes. So you never even see this thing because the rent is affordable. For me, I don't do that. And for me, in my own case, which is different, it's not my business. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a trader. So Of course, your profit, you use it to do real estate. They say business makes you wealthy, real estate, business makes you rich, real estate makes you wealthy. So, but for people, there are people who are dependent on those rents. And this is the reason. If the cost of everything has gone times 3, why do you think your rent will not go times 3? Because the money that the rent that the person is collecting is the way you are collecting your salary. He's using them for those expenses. And the things that he used to buy that he could afford, now he has to cough up 3 times that money. And so therefore he has to increase it 3 times that money.
Just a ripple effect.
Yes, it's a ripple effect. Sometimes people think that, landlord, they just come and they just do. No, it's not that way. You're seeing houses, and I can tell you something. There's a lot of difficulty. You're building a house. You're having to create roads down there. You understand? You're having to do roads. You're having to bring in the water. You're having to put in transformers. I had a particular time where my tenants in this Abuja came together, wrote a letter, signed it, all of it, and sent it to me to come and do road. No, come and redo the road that it has come. They didn't write to their local government, their ward councillor. They didn't write to their local government. They didn't write to the FCT minister or whatever. It was me. So you see, these are some of the things, because people don't realize that government are supposed to provide a lot of things. Because we don't hold the government accountable, we then allow them to abdicate their responsibilities, and then they spend the money that they should have been using judiciously to provide, infrastructure for us that will make our life easier. They will not be doing it to be doing shiny toys. So these are what these toys are. But let me also add something. You see, in the case of, there are a lot of properties in Abuja where you don't have C of O's, right? This is something that the FCT can do. Why don't you drop the prices and get people to get C of O's? Don't wait for your collecting so million. You're telling someone to go and get go and get 30 million, 100 million. Reduce it to something very affordable. Waive it off. The people get them and begin to collect ground rent. So that of all the houses, imagine in an estate, just look at your area, that all the houses are paying ground rent. Not something that is too big, something that is reasonable. And that money that is coming, that's where the council tax that you talk about, those monies that are coming from there, they use them to provide health care for that community, to provide for the education for the primary and secondary school within that community. People will gladly pay.
I want to thank you so much, Aisha Yesufu, for being with us on Dateline Abuja. I'm sure we're going to have you here often.
Thank you. Yes, I would love to be here, because right now I want to really be focused on Abuja issues.
Yeah. Thanks again for making out the time to be with us.
Thank
and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks to my guest and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screens. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Magwa. See you next time.